Get the latest scores, highlights, headlines, and podcasts from Sid and Joe right at your fingertips. Go to 640sports.com.
Welcome.
Sid.
Okay, it's go time.
It's go time.
Sid Rosenberg.
Oh my God, Sid.
These weirdos all gotta have a name now.
You're listening.
Repeat sound. Let's do this.
Okay, well tell me. Break it down. Break it down. Break it down. Break it down.
Rutabaga, Eisenhower, Roland Garden. Get over here. It's a Sid Rosenberg show on 640 Sports.
LeBron working it on Quinn, blows past it, puts it up, puts it in, gets fouled, and LeBron James has a chance for the three-point play.
We just had to calm down. I mean, this team, they execute much better than they did last year, and they added some new pieces. And you kind of got to try to get a rhythm to how high-paced they are offensively. You know, and we know that we didn't come out and play the way we wanted to play, but, you know, that's why it's 4 quarters and you're able to redeem yourself. And we finally got to our game. We finally start moving the ball. We finally start getting stops. And when we do that, we're a very, very good team.
Jumper by Lopez, no good, but Porzingis on the offensive glass stuffs it home. Porzingis rising high above the rim, crushes it, and the Knicks lead by 5. Timeout, Cleveland.
Williams attacks left side, finds a cutter. Oh, LeBron! He thunders home a right-handed jam, and the Cavaliers have taken a 93-82 lead, and the Knicks, with 2:05 to go, take a timeout.
Every game presents different challenges, and we got to be able to win all games. You got to be able to win games that's high power. Sometimes defensively you're playing well, but just offense always is better than your offense is better than defense. You know, sometimes in our league, and you know, and like tonight, you know, both teams kind of struggled. Even though the first quarter. They came out shooting 65% from the floor, and we couldn't buy a basket, but walking down defensively, locking down, contesting shots, rebounding, and then executing offensively.
This one now is over. The Cavaliers improved their record to 4-1 on the young season, winning their 4th in a row as they take out the New York Knicks by the final of 96-86.
The team's quarterback situation, which appeared so dire on Sunday night in Oakland, has come into focus. Todd Bowles said after practice on Wednesday that Ryan Fitzpatrick will start Sunday against the Jaguars. He made that announcement after watching Fitzpatrick go through a full practice without limitations. He was able to take snaps from under center, and he was able to grip the ball with his left hand on handoffs to the right side. Those were the 2 key obstacles for him, and he apparently passed with flying colors. The backup, Geno Smith, is dealing with a left shoulder bruise, and he too practiced full, so I expect him to be the number 2 quarterback on Sunday. Definitely sensed some disappointment from Geno Smith. I think he was hoping to be the starter, but the sentiment in the locker room, relief. They are glad that Ryan Fitzpatrick is staying their starting quarterback. They have a good chemistry going. They do not want to make a change at this point in the season.
Trump came out swinging. He called Marco Rubio a lightweight, and then he went on to malign his credit card debt. Marco Rubio appeared earlier on Good Morning America.
Ultimately, I have one debt in the world. I have 2 debts in the world, actually. The mortgage on my home and the fact that America, I owe so much to this country because of everything it's made possible for me and my family.
To me, that was a pretty good answer. Will it resonate?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I mean, I saw Marco Rubio last week in Iowa after the debate. He's very good at connecting with voters on the sort of middle class issues. You know, he talks about issues in terms that aren't necessarily, you know, Washington terms, but terms that people who live paycheck to paycheck, to use a phrase he uses a lot, actually think about. And so the fact that, you know, he had some credit card problems actually kind of resonates with people. But, you know, I think this is something that, in terms of his financial problems, could come back to bite him if they seem to be more extravagant than, you know, simply credit card debt, and maybe, you know, he bought a house as he did that didn't do very well. Look, the fact that Rubio didn't do very well in a lot of these financial sort of exercises that he was trying to do sort of speaks that he wasn't really corrupt or doing anything wrong. He just struggled like anybody else.
Investigators in Illinois say the officer whose shooting sparked an enormous manhunt actually staged his own death to make it look like he died in the line of duty. You'll remember the story from Fox Lake, Illinois, about a 90-minute drive north of Chicago, where detectives say that Lieutenant Joe Glenswitz, how do you say it? Glenswitz, had spent years stealing thousands of dollars from his department's youth program. He reportedly used the cash to pay for his mortgage, his gym memberships, even adult websites. And they say he spent the last 6 months of his life methodically planning his own suicide after managers started looking into the department's finances. It all came to an end in September. Officer Glenowitz found dead in an isolated area. The only description of possible suspects came from his own radio call for backup. Well, first for information and then for backup. He said he was chasing three men total, 2 white, 1 black. Despite a massive manhunt that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to taxpayers, investigators never tracked down those men. We now know it's because they did not exist.
For 5 days, investigators have searched the wreckage for clues, the cause a mystery. Now a U.S. official tells NBC News evidence indicates it was likely a bomb. The suspicion, it was placed on board by ground crew or baggage handlers, and that ISIS is responsible. It's a strong suspicion, not a conclusion, and no evidence of a bomb has been found yet in the debris. But it's a suspicion shared by Britain.
We have concluded that there is a significant possibility that that crash was caused by an explosive device on board the aircraft.
Britain is suspending all flights to the airport where the plane took off. Officials won't say if intelligence comes from the crash site or the flight data recorders, which are still being analysed. And no one is ruling out the possibility of a technical fault on the plane. One hard piece of evidence, a US satellite strongly suggesting an explosion. A heat flash, detected at the time of the disaster, can only have come from a catastrophic fault causing the fuel tank to explode or a bomb. Russian doctors report the injuries of those in the back of the plane match an explosion. But the mere suspicion this was a bomb raises this disaster to a new level.
We obviously have a strong desire to get to the bottom of what exactly happened there.
Getting an explosive device onto an aircraft in this region is just a real game changer for security.
U.S. aircraft have long been warned away from this area, the FAA advising airlines should avoid flying into or over the Sinai Peninsula. If it was a bomb, there will be evidence, explosive residue, fragments of a timer. No one has found it yet, but there is growing concern.
Here's Heather from Fox News.
Well, there's some African-American folks up here in New York who are pretty offended by it.
Well, wait a minute. Let me say this to you, Karen. We're not in New York. Okay, we don't broadcast in New York. We're on WQAM in Miami. Well, and the fact of the matter is that except for people like you and the people at that right-wing Newsmax.com who want to make a big timus about this, if it weren't for that, they wouldn't even be aware that we exist.
Neil, there's some, this organization that's offended by it is a national organization.
But the fact of the matter is we've been playing these songs for many, many, many months. We've never had one single complaint. And when interlopers like you from outside, like from Fox News or from some right-wing website, want to tell us what, I mean, for you to ask me, how come you're playing that? Because we want to play it.
Okay, Neil, but what's the value in it? What does it do for you? What does it do for the audience?
It's called comedy. That's what it's called. You have a sense of humor?
Classic cure for you. 612 on your Thursday morning. Welcome back to the self-proclaimed best talk show, not just in South Florida, but anywhere in the country. It is the Eric Langell Radio Show.
Why, thank you.
Supporting cast, including Sid Rosenberg and Steve Zemag.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
We're in there. We're in the supporting cast, just so you know. It's his show, of course. I know that because of the Facebook page, which specifically states Eric Langell
No. See, you get so ridiculous. It's just my page,
right?
And it's the Sid Rosenberg show page.
Well, why is my name on that page?
And why is my name not?
That's because
there's another issue.
Well, please.
Well, happy birthday to, well, he's dead. He can't celebrate today, but if he was alive, he'd be 73 years old. One of my real inspirations, the guys that I look up to, although the only one I didn't work with or for. Because, of course, I spent many years, almost 6 years every single day and 9 years in total, working in and around and for the I-Man, the great Don Imus. Did stuff for Howard Stern, hosted Whack Pack Bowling on Howard TV, 4 times a guest on the Howard Stern Show. Never had the chance to do any of that with Neil. I did replace Neil, of course. People don't realize that, but Joe Bell, my former boss at WQAM, wanted Neil Rogers out in the worst way. First of all, he was making a lot of money. And what people don't realize is when the ratings changed from the diaries to the PPM, this nonsense, these ratings, which mean nothing. They mean nothing. Nobody did more revenue than Don Imus in New York City. Not Rush Limbaugh, not Howard Stern. And there were times when Imus was out of the top 10. And quite frankly, nobody in this business in sports talk radio, maybe outside of Joe Rose, does more revenue than me. Ratings mean nothing. They're a joke. You got 18 people walking around with some stupid little box, and they deem that ratings. Everybody listens to me. I know they do. Everybody. But anyway, Joe Bell wanted Neil Rogers out. He was making way too much money, and Neil was a pain in the ass at the very end. All he did was attack QAM management. So there were 2 things which Joe Bell used to his advantage. One was the ratings. The PPM, I think his first PPM, Neil Rogers got a 0.8 for a guy that was getting 9s in diaries. And then he did say the F word on the air, and it went over the air. I guess Jorge Rodriguez, whatever that kid's name is, didn't dump it. The dump button didn't work, and so he was gone. I could not start right away for Neil because I was sitting out my non-compete from $7.90 the ticket. So they Steve Goldie, in that seat for about 2 or 3 months while I sat out my non-compete. But I really did replace Neil. And then I went on to replace another late, great South Florida guy, Jim Mandich, when QAM decided that they needed strong bookends, mornings and afternoons, to fight Levitard, and I was the guy to do that. So, but anyway, Neil would have been 73 years old today and one of my all-time favorites. The last 5 years of his career, of course, he may as well have worn a ski mask and carried a gun because he robbed WQAM, did nothing. He read the poll and bitched about management. That was it. And obviously made fun of the rest of us, Sid the Kid and Levitard, everybody else. But for many, 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 many years, he was a genius. You know, loved him. Stern loved him. In fact, Howard really wanted to hire Neil for his XM Sirius channel. Those, as far as I know, and Delabate probably will admit this, those discussions got pretty real.
Yeah, there was audio on that when Neil passed away, that Stern was upset that Sirius management wouldn't pay Neil what he was deserved.
Didn't want to pay him, because he loved him. So anyway, he's one of the all-time treasures here. Neil Rogers would have been 73 years old today, but he's not because he's dead. No time. So.
And it's been what? What are we going on?
He actually died on, not even close, Christmas Eve, 2010. So this 2010? Christmas Eve. Yes, he's gone. It'll be 5 years this Christmas Eve.
Oh, okay.
He died at the age of 68. Did you like Neil God?
Did I? Oh, yeah. I remember it seemed like he was on all day, in the afternoon. What was he, 10 to 2 or something like that?
At the end he was for QAM. I don't know, before that.
I think that was always his slot. I think that was always.
It was always that.
Whenever I was driving around, it was on Neil.
Yeah.
That's what my dad he was a big Neil fan. I think 10 to 2 when I moved down
here. He would get mad down here because I'd be like, oh, come on. I worked in New York. We had Imus and Stern. Stop with Neil Rogers. And I still feel that way. Neil is a legend, an all-time great, one of the best ever. He ain't Don or Howard. Let's be honest. You got to stop there. But for here, he's far and away the all-time best, right? I mean, Phil Hendry is great.
Yeah, I always wonder how Neil would have went nationally. I don't know if he would have flown nationally. I
don't know. That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think he would have. He was really smart, man. He really was, and he was just he didn't care. Well, what kind of I have been described often and I'm not sure I deserve this, and to be honest, it embarrasses me a little bit. In fact, even if you go back in our archives there, the Miami Heat announcer, who was beloved down here, the great Eric Reed, who does your Miami Heat basketball games. We heard in the open there the Knickerbockers blew a 16-point lead early against the Cavaliers, and eventually the Cavs ran away and beat the Knicks by 10 last night. LeBron James had, how many? 23 last night. Another miserable shooting night for Carmelo Anthony, just 6 of 18 from the floor. That's 33%. So in the 5 Knicks games this year, where the Knicks are 2-3, he had one great effort, put in 37 against the Wizards last Saturday and shot it well. The other 4 games, Carmelo shot 35% or less from the floor. The Heat are back in action tonight in Minnesota against the 2-1 Timberwolves, and then back on the court again tomorrow night in Indiana against the Pacers. So the Knicks have the Heat have 2 away games the next 2 days. They have started the season 2-2, fresh off a home loss to the Atlanta Hawks. And their announcer, Eric Reed, favorably compared us to Neil Rogers. As sensitive as I am and as sympathetic as I am to the wonderful people of Boston, the Knicks can't beat the Celtics by enough once we start the play. You know what I mean?
That's the way it goes, brother. I mean, we're all New Yorkers and all Americans are with Boston, but when it comes to the playoffs, you got to pick your side and stand by it. But Sid, I'm glad you do your show the way you do because Neil Rogers for so many years, filled that need in this marketplace, and with Neil long gone, having passed away, you're really a valuable piece of the puzzle for South Florida media, and it's nice to have a show like that in the market.
Thank you. Okay, very good. So that was Eric Reed. That was from the Knicks. That was the 54-win season when the Knicks were taking on the Celtics in the first round of the playoffs. The Knicks beat Boston in that playoff series, went on to lose to Indiana in the second round, and they have sucked a big one. I mean, sucked it like Linda Lovelace ever since. Eric Reed. We're going to play that about 5 times today, being that's Neil Rogers' birthday, and it's all about me. I want to make Neil Rogers' birthday all about me. Is that cool?
You're doing that slowly, and
be quiet. I am not. I'm giving Neil. I'm paying homage to Neil.
Paying homage. Playing Eric Reed, complimenting you.
Well, no. If you heard what the man said, he started by saying Neil Rogers.
Well, he happened to compare your show to Neil's, but I mean,
that was him. I had nothing to do with that. And
well,
I didn't even want to save that audio. You're the one who wanted to save that audio, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's my job.
To make me look good.
I have to chronicleize the show, or whatever it is that I do.
Well, we'll play, I should say, a bunch of classic Neil bits throughout the day, the bridge tender and all that good stuff, and somehow involve me if you can. If you can, I just...
Oh, we'll try. I'll try. If it doesn't happen, though, don't be upset.
Right. So we went over the basketball from last night. That was in the open. The Jets... They've now lost 2 in a row. They lose a tough one to the Pats. They played well, fell apart defensively inside the fourth quarter. Last week, embarrassed out in Oakland by the Raiders. Still looking pretty good, though, at 4-3 in a very winnable game this Sunday against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jets have a chance to end the first half of the season at 5-3. That is not bad in Todd Bowles' first season. And the good news is their starting quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick, who went out early last week, first quarter against the Raiders. He did come back for one more snap in the fourth quarter, but Geno Smith played most of the way last week. Ryan Fitzpatrick back on the field against Jacksonville this weekend.
What a warrior, huh?
What a warrior, yes.
Broken ligaments in his thumb. He's going to play. Play it out. Willis Reed-esque.
Be quiet. Just be quiet. You want to talk about ligaments and thumbs and hand injuries. Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jason Pierre-Paul's going to play for the Giants this weekend.
Yeah.
Ronnie Lott cut a finger off at halftime to finish the second half or something.
What about Rambo? Didn't he? And then he got like 18 POWs out.
Rambo?
That's fictional.
Well, that's legendary.
That wasn't real?
No. What are you talking about?
Don't say that. He thinks
I know. He thinks it is, like Santa Claus.
Every Stallone character is real to him.
John Rambo is a real wartime figure, yes.
Yeah. Say that to John McCain. I'll punch you in the face. But on a serious note, yes, both guys with hand injuries. Ryan Fitzpatrick will start with the Jets against the Jaguars this week, and JPP in practice is expected to make his season debut with the Giants this Sunday against the Buccaneers. Not an easy game for the G-men.
The Bucs are actually playing a lot better.
Bucs are playing better.
Mike Evans is playing out of his mind.
Mike Evans is a really good player.
He really is.
He's a really good player.
No Vincent Jackson, but they haven't lost a beat.
No, and they still have Morton running the ball, and Winston's look pretty good. Their defense is better than we thought. They are fresh off a win over the 6-2 Atlanta Falcons on the road. So the Giant Buccaneer game promises to be a pretty good one. Dolphins have the Bills. Both teams at 3-4. So either Miami or Buffalo will get back even at 4-4. The other team will fall to 3-5. And I think at that point they're pretty much gone. Bills destroyed Miami. You may remember all the way back in week 3, the home opener.
Week 3, yes.
For the Dolphins. And so the Dolphins look to exact revenge on Rex Ryan up in Buffalo. The last time the Bills played, I think, was that loss to Jacksonville in London. Feels like a month ago.
Yeah, they had the bye week, and here's a stat. Rex has never won following the bye week with the Jets.
Is that true?
Yep. Every single season, the Jets lost following the bye week.
I don't believe that's true. So can you confirm that statistic? Like, you know what is it? Because he's so mad about Rex.
I was going to say,
I'm not mad. I love Rex.
He craps on Rex all the time and makes Todd Bowles out to be Vince Lombardi.
No.
In the meantime, I never saw, in 50 years of watching the NFL, I never saw a coach more lost than Todd Bowles in the last 4 minutes of the Jet game last week. Any of this goodwill you built up with Todd Bowles, you think how great he is. He's got organization. Of course, he was still the coach from the quarterback, got punched in the face in training camp. He was completely lost last week. I mean lost. I've never seen anything like it, ever. I've seen some of the worst coaches in the history of the game have a better handle the last 4 minutes than Todd Bowles had last week.
I just gave you a stat on Rex Ryan.
Well,
that's a
you
fact.
made it up.
What are we talking about?
Because
I made
it up. It's not even a real stat, you son of a bitch.
Okay, we'll go and check.
Let me get Garrett Phillips.
Z-Mac has so many negative facts about Rex Ryan.
I love Rex. What are you talking about? Those are two of the greatest sports moments of my life, those runs. When we beat New England.
We have our own fact checker here. He's like Tony Reale. He's the new intern, Garrett Phillips. Garrett, good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
What can you add to this conversation?
So I just checked up on the Rex Ryan fact. He's almost right. You said they were
never won
0-5?
Yeah.
They were 1-5.
1-5. Okay. Well, all right. So it's still awful.
They were outscored something like 130 plus to
That's
about
fair.
40
It's still
points.
awful. To your point, Z-Mac, it's still awful. But of course, again, as I knew you would, you lied and exaggerated
What was that one
to
game,
make Rex Ryan look worse.
No, I love Rex.
Love Rex.
I love Rex.
You told me a couple weeks ago, the most penalized team.
They were. That's another fact.
Not under Todd
And they're the
Bowles.
and the Bills are the most penalized team this season. Another fact.
Means nothing.
You watched the Giants game. 2 touchdowns called back for holding.
Tom Coughlin's Giants were the most penalized team a couple years ago. Did you realize that?
He cleaned it up.
And he's going to the Hall of Fame.
He cleaned it up. It's six seasons now. 7 seasons, the Bills, Rex Ryan.
It means nothing. Anyway,
right.
so
penalties mean nothing.
It means nothing. That is the Jets story. It means nothing. It's not his fault. Some big doofus on the offensive line jumps before the snap. What's next? Marco, it's not his fault. I'm sorry. That is the old, like my dad does that. He's like, well, penalties go back to the coach. No, it doesn't. Okay, you know what? Listen, if the team is out of control getting 15-yard misconduct penalties every single week, that's one thing. But when a fat offensive lineman jumps before the snap, or some guy is holding on the offensive line, or some guy in the secondary is holding an opposing wide receiver, that has nothing to do with the coach. Nothing.
Plenty of 15-yard penalties.
Not enough
against
to,
the Giants. Plenty.
One game. I got one
That's
game.
That's the one
yes.
game that I know you watched. I watched Rex for 5 seasons.
I watched the whole game.
6 seasons.
I watched the whole
6
game
seasons.
in London against Jacksonville. I didn't see one of those penalties. Not one. In fact, Jacksonville got it for nearly killing LaShawn McCoy at the 4-yard line. Nearly killed him.
Shula used to get credit for being the least penalized team in the league all the time.
Shula, right.
Shula. It was
like he had something to do with that.
The disciplinary.
And Don Shula's not a good coach, right? He doesn't go down in history as a good coach.
Because he won games.
Right, exactly.
Not because his team was the least penalized.
You don't think penalties have anything to do with winning games?
Of course not.
They beat the Giants if they don't get those 17 penalties.
Oh, get out of here. Just
and then they're
stop
4-3 now. It's a completely different scenario.
As if, by the way, somebody got a penalty and Don Shula took the guy out and shot him. Or like the Russians would do if you played a bad game in gold in the Olympics, we're sending you back to Siberia. It's not like these coaches, these guys don't commit penalties because they're scared to death what the coach may do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And nobody is more of a prick than Rex Ryan. Nobody, if he's got to be. So don't give me that nonsense. And Tom Coughlin was the biggest drill sergeant in football for years, and his team was the most penalized for almost 2 years. It means nothing. Has nothing to do with the coach. Nothing. Zero. Anyway, Marco Rubio, how ugly is that going to get?
Looks like it's getting pretty ugly.
But why?
Although if you're on the outside and you don't know much about it, you think he's great.
You do realize that when he ran here against Kendrick Meek and Charlie Crist and even the last couple of elections, that this has come up before. Is this just getting uglier now because it's the propensity of running for president because it's a much bigger stage?
Well, yeah, they're trying to find some dirt on him and push his poll numbers down.
How's that going?
But what is the dirt? That he has credit card debt?
There were three things in particular. He has a credit card from his party, political credit card, I guess.
Oh, okay.
That he's only supposed to use for political stuff,
work-related stuff,
and he pays his personal bills. He said, by the way, that's not illegal. And every time I did that, I paid it, which should be fine. Secondly, his second home was in foreclosure. And thirdly, something about liquidating a $68,000 loan or something, and showing that he's just not good with his money because he always needs money, basically. And he said, hey, what can I tell you? I don't make a lot of money. My parents came here with nothing, and I'm like every other American. That's it. And in the end, I think that's probably the right answer. I don't know. He's never been brought up on any investigation.
Seems like a weak smer campaign.
Me too.
Here.
That's what I think. Yeah.
Weak.
Especially when you go student loans. I mean,
student loans.
If you want to go to college, you need student loans unless you get a scholarship, I guess.
Right.
But it's rare to get a 100% scholarship. When you're going to a big college,
that's exactly
at least
right.
$20,000.
You're exactly right, T-Mac. Exactly right. How much do you owe in student loans?
I still owe over $10,000.
What did I tell you? What did I tell you to do?
No, don't give him this advice. What did you tell?
Not on the air, at least.
Yeah, I mean, please.
I'm not doing that.
The second news story in the open today, this Joe Glinowitz story, which Shepard Smith, what a great job by Shepard Smith out of Fox. He could not pronounce. He goes, Joe, how do you say that? This is live on television. This isn't, before the show, or like the three of us will do at 5:50 a.m. Live on television, Shepard Smith, Fox.
Not even a tough name to get right.
Glinowitz.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. It's the story is every 2 seconds on every news channel, and Shepard Smith had no idea. Do we have that again, that little piece of audio?
I'm going to cue it up here. Yeah, he's a
And that's like he's talking to his producer,
right?
And his producer's talking to him in the ear, and they're having a conversation, a one-way conversation on the air.
May have been
crazy.
Janice Dean, our good friend from IMIS, who does weather for Shepard Smith there, afternoons on Fox. But he had no idea. And as it turns out, this guy, Glinowitz, if you don't remember the story about a month and a half ago, he supposedly was chasing 3 men, 2 white, 1 black, and in the line of duty was gunned down. And this huge manhunt ensued. They spent about $250,000. Everybody in Illinois was very upset. His wife crying at the funeral. This hero, they called him G.I. Joe, gunned down in the line of duty. Now we find out he's been stealing money from the youth program there in Illinois to pay for his gym membership, his starters, his mortgage, adult websites for 7 years, and the hammer was about to come down. So this G.I. Joe was very good at staging crimes, including suicides, and he has spent the last 6 months elaborately staging his suicide, and as it turns out, it was suicide. We know that part. Getting his name right, that's a whole other issue.
Investigators in Illinois say the officer whose shooting sparked an enormous manhunt actually staged his own death to make it look like he died in the line of duty. You'll remember the story from Fox Lake, Illinois, about a 90-minute drive north of Chicago, where detectives say that Lieutenant Joe Glinowitz, how do you say it?
How do you say that?
Glinowitz.
Glinowitz.
Spent years
Not even close.
stealing.
I mean,
The best part is
he still didn't get it right. The second time, it's Glinowitz. Well, who's Glinowitz?
Joe Glinowitz. How do you say it? Glinowitz. Had spent years.
Glinowitz.
Joe.
How do you say it?
By the way, it turns out his wife and his kid are also part of this investigation, and 2 other police officers, I guess. So this is a pretty widespread investigation. A bunch of folks stealing money. He was one of them, and he offed himself, which did, for some reason, inspire Ron Kuby, the very famous New York attorney Ron Kuby, who's part of the very successful midday/afternoon show on WABC, the legendary WABC in New York, with Don Imus hosts the mornings. Then they've got Geraldo Rivera. They've got Michael Savage doing afternoons. Ron and Kuby, Curtis Sliwa, I should say, Ron Kuby and Curtis Sliwa do the show in between Geraldo Rivera and Michael Savage. And Ron Kuby posted something on my Facebook page, which was completely inaccurate. Completely inaccurate. And I came back at him. He did send me back a reply. Here's what he wrote on my, which to a certain extent I was honored, because if he's going to think of me right away, not Sean Hannity, not Rush Limbaugh, not Don Imus, all those folks up in New York, if he's going to think of me, it's somewhat I guess, somewhat flattering, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, you got to remember now, he suffers from a mental disorder called liberalism.
Right, he's a horrible disease, which I did say in here. I said, even though you suffer from a horrible disease, I still love you. He says, Sid, I recall a while ago, you lashed out at everyone on the left, blaming them for the savage murder of the Illinois cop, especially those two black guys. It was never two black guys. It was always one black guy and two white guys. He's already wrong. Who fled into the woods. Now that it turns out he killed himself and there was no black guys, perhaps we can be a more careful in the future. First of all, because it was black and white at the time, two whites and one black, not white and two blacks.
Well, facts don't matter to liberals.
Right, doesn't matter. I never once, unlike the Michael Brown story or the Trayvon Martin story or the Freddie, what was his name in Baltimore?
Freddie Gray.
Thank you. Any of these stories, I never once, you guys are my witness, once brought up the black-white thing. Never.
No.
Never.
We just wanted an answer to a police officer that we thought was murdered.
That's it. Are they going to find
these
guys
when cops were getting shot a lot, too often, and it was becoming, a story that was worthy of getting a little upset about.
So what about the cops that were sitting in their car in New York that they just got up and got shot in the face?
Assassinated by a black guy from Baltimore.
Right. What about those, Ron Kuby? What about all the other instances? We're not going into it, but I'm just saying.
But the point is, I never said a word about that case. I mean, if you want to take me to task about me having very little to almost zero sympathy for Michael Brown, that's fine. That's true. That is true.
We have him on video minutes before roughing up a guy that's half his size, stealing cigars.
Right. But don't, this specific case, which he came at me on Facebook about, which again, I'm flattered he thinks of me, he's just wrong. He's wrong. That's the bottom line. So now we got to get him on the air, but I'm afraid it'll turn into such a disaster.
Yeah.
And then he becomes so condescending and so...
That's the problem. He thinks he's like this...
Well, he is much smarter
genius.
than me. He's a great attorney, and I mean, really great attorney. But so that... he was inspired to write that yesterday. And then, of course, also yesterday, we had on Northeastern University professor, a guy that is widely recognized as one of the great terrorist experts in the country. And he's a great guest on this show. Max Abrams was on late yesterday morning. And I said to Max, I said, listen, they blew that plane up. I know you're the pro here. You're the terrorism expert. But they blew that. Planes just don't break apart in the sky. He's like, well... if there was a mechanical difficulty and the engine blew up, then yes, you would have that type of explosion in the sky. I'm like, no, stop. Well, of course, I'll let him speak his piece because that's his job. And he almost convinced me. It wasn't even 2 hours later that the news broke that U.S. intel has determined, not concluded really, but they say it's more likely that ISIS, in fact, somehow or another, or an ISIS affiliate, did manage to get a bomb on the plane. They had details yesterday. They paid off some Russian guys at the airport who have since been fired. I haven't seen that again since yesterday. But not the conclusion, but the conventional wisdom, the consensus, overwhelming consensus is that it was, in fact, as I thought all along, a bomb that blew that plane up.
And most likely not a suicide bomb, just a bomb that was put in by the luggage or something like that.
They didn't get on board with this.
Right, correct. It was someone at the airport that probably got paid off.
A baggage handler, one of the mechanical guys, somebody put this thing on board, got paid off, and blew the damn plane up.
Now, there is ISIS affiliates in the Sinai, and somehow they must have got to the airport, connected, paid money, and
now they're
done.
saying you can't fly planes over the Sinai Peninsula because of the ISIS danger.
Well, the timeline that I ran over is that England and Ireland were the first ones to say no flights to Sinai.
Right.
And then it was about an hour later, the U.S. was like, well, we think there could have been a bomb, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So we're going to do the same. But we're still waiting for an official announcement, which I would expect to come today.
I would hope it comes today.
Egypt, who was General Sisi, the president of Egypt, was on BBC last night, and he would not go as far as saying there was a bomb. They're still looking into it. So Egypt said nothing.
Right.
But we expect something today.
Well, Eric Lengel, this is his field. He's very good at this. He's convinced there was an explosive device on board. He's convinced about that.
I'm convinced, yes, of course.
Of course.
Because the U.S. intel said so. That's it.
Whatever they say.
Well, that's gospel.
That is gospel.
That's it. It's over.
I've got some Chris Christie news, too, and I got to say that I actually thought Chris Christie, specifically the last two debates, I know people in Jersey can't stand him. They hate him. The governor of New Jersey. I thought the last two debates, he was as good as anybody. Marco Rubio, any of those guys. Well, it turns out the next debate, I don't have the exact date. I should get that, which I believe is on the Fox Business Channel, the home of Maria Bartiromo. She replaced Don Imus, and Varney and Neil Cavuto and a host of others. It turns out that based upon their criteria that the guy on his way out may end up at the kiddie table, Chris Christie. And they're also saying, based upon numbers, that guys like Bobby Jindal out of Louisiana and the former New York Governor Pataki may be out of the debate overall, even off the kiddie table. So the kiddie table may turn out to be Rick Santorum, Lindsey Graham, and Chris Christie, while guys like Rand Paul, Mike Huckabee, those types of guys will be able to just make it. Because I think the poll numbers have to be at least 3% or better, and right now Chris Christie is closer to 2.5%. Now, that's what I'm reading. How about you?
Yeah, I was looking at something else. Surprised to see that this debate is right around the corner, November 10th.
Yes, right around the corner.
Right around the corner.
And there's a
they
Democrat
just had
debate,
one.
I think, next week, too.
And the Democrat debate is on the 14th. The Republican debate on the 10th is from Milwaukee. And
Yes.
the 14th, the Democratic debate is from Des Moines, Iowa.
There you go. We got a good guest that's stopping by today, as always, each and every Thursday, making picks in college football, the NFL. He does baseball, basketball, hockey, you name it. One of the real great handicappers and most entertaining handicappers in the country today. His weekly visit, Stu Feiner, stopping by at 7 o'clock. We're going to talk to the man that writes the Florida Playbook on Politico every single week. It is a great article. And now, of course, with the Marco Rubio controversy and Jeb Bush, and who is Rick Scott, your governor, here endorsing. Great day to bring on Mark Caputo. He'll join us at 7:30. The former Gambino jewelry heister. Nobody bigger in the Gambino than Larry Lawton. Stole upwards of $18 million worth of jewelry, spent 11 years in a federal prison, has a New York Times bestseller out right now with Peter Goldenbeck, and, of course, now runs the reality check program, saving young kids all across the country. Larry Lawton will stop by at 8:30. Albert Breer, NFL Network, he's going to be here today. And from our sister station, 103.1 WIRK, Chelsea Taylor will be here today because last night was the CMAs. Isn't that right?
That is right, and I did not see 1 second of it.
None of it, huh?
Didn't even know it was on.
What about
found
you?
out about it in the morning.
Found out when I was going through Twitter this morning.
I think the biggest story from the CMAs is that Blake Shelton, it's official now, it's in all the papers across the country, Blake Shelton is, in fact, banging Gwen Stefani. That's a big story, no?
Yeah, Linkell, do you watch The Voice?
I watched The Voice. I just was catching up on it last night. And I mean, there's always a little flirtatious kind of back and forth, but I would never.
Well, usually the flirting is between Adam Levine and Blake Shelton.
Well, yeah, those guys too. I think Blake has them both. Yeah. But she's been horny the whole show.
Yeah, she
you can tell she's divorced.
I think Pharrell's banging her too, but I don't know that.
I think she may be banging some of her contestants, some of the guys.
That may be.
She's picking all the hot guys.
She gets very enthused and picks all the good-looking guys.
I mean, she's hugging them now and telling them, would you rather be with me every night or these guys?
There you go. So we got all that information for you. Stu Feiner, Mark Caputo, Larry Lawton, Albert Breer, Chelsea Taylor, and, of course, your phone calls. 844-640-6464. 844-640-6464. Going to be a great and very diverse Thursday morning show. We'll come right back right after these short messages.
Welcome back to the Sid Rosenberg Show.
The deputy police chief says 6 officers were killed, including the district's top cop after the vehicle they were riding in was sprayed with bullets. 3 other officers were hurt in the attack. And those are your latest headlines. I'm Jane Skinner. Time now to send you back to Shepard, who is live where? Just outside of Memphis.
South Carolina Gamecocks. She's a big fan. J-Lo's new song, Jenny from the Block, all about Lopez roots, about how she's still a neighborhood gal at heart. But folks from that street in New York, the Bronx section, sound more likely to give her a curb job than a blow or block party. The New York Post, sorry about that slip up there. I have no idea how that happened, but it won't happen again.
It's Sid Rosenberg on 640 Sports.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I wanted to talk to you about bridges,
about what?
Cars and boats that you talked about earlier.
About what?
Bridges, cars, and boats.
No, we're talking about bridges over the causeway, not the ones in your mouth.
I don't have any, my friend.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah.
Calm down, sir. Take a deep
fine
breath.
and dandy. Those are regulated by the United Corps of Engineers. You knew that, didn't you?
No.
Well, it is. All bridges over navigable waterways.
See, if I knew that, I wouldn't have been asking, see?
What's that?
I said if I knew the answer to the question, I wouldn't have asked it in the first place.
Okay, well, all I'm saying, sir, is that the United States Corps of Engineers are the ones that regulate bridges over navigable waterways.
Over what?
Navigable waterways.
Yes, sir, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's up to them to decide what time the bridges should not be open to the marine traffic.
Yes? And what time should they not be open to marine traffic, sir?
I'm telling you that they come up with the times.
Well, what is the time?
I believe it's at rush hour times, sir, that they are not open to marine traffic. Other than that, they are open to marine traffic.
So, in other words, any schlep with a boat can come along and back up traffic for 2 miles.
That is absolutely correct, sir.
Well, what kind of a communist bunch of crap is that?
That is not a communist bunch of crap, sir.
Sounds like some kind of Neanderthal fascist commie pinko conspiracy to me.
Automobiles to one boat.
Right, exactly.
So the boat is going to stop for 5,000 cars? Is that it?
No, I think that 50,000 cars ought to stop for one jackass in his boat. I think that's what they ought to do.
Man, you better know your laws, mister, because you sure don't.
That's right.
I suppose you want the damn bridges closed to boat traffic in a hurricane, too.
I want the bridges closed, period, okay? I want them closed. I want the bridge tender to go home and watch MTV and get the hell out of our lives.
In other words,
I want those bridges closed. Let them use the Julia Tuttle, okay? Let them use the MacArthur Causeway. I think they ought to go on the George Washington Bridge and jump all the bridge tenders. How do you like that, sir?
Well, I don't know about you, but you sound like some stupid, idiotic jerk.
The Salvation Army band played, and the children drank the lemonade, and the morning lasted all day, and through an open window came, like Sinatra in a younger day, pushing the town away.
Talk about life in a northern town. It was 73 years ago today up in Rochester, New York, that Neil Rogers was born. It was nearly 5 years ago, it'll be Christmas Eve this year, that he died. The great Neil Rogers, happy birthday to one of the all-time greats. The Bridge Tender, that goes on forever, doesn't it?
It's a classic.
And there's no real reason why. There's really nothing to it, really. It's just,
just
some old guy called. What was his point anyway?
He was angry that the bridge didn't open up often enough for boats.
Yeah, but he made the point that there was, for every 5,000 cars, there's one boat. So it almost sounded to me like he was contradicting himself.
Well, he was to any reasonable person, but evidently he thought that every time a boat pulled up, we should stop, the world for the boat. And it just,
How many references over the years down here? How many times has somebody used the Julia Tuttle as a reference? I mean, I've been on, we all have, of course, but that's by, excuse me, that was horrible. That was by Z-Mac's old place over there by Las Olas, right? The Julia Tuttle.
Right.
Yes.
So you've traveled the Julia Tunnel.
Is that little tunnel under?
Yes.
Yes, many times. Well, actually, not many times, because you miss it. If you go to Las Olas, you make that
right.
That,
you make
that
the right
left,
over there by the Cheesecake Factory.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you don't actually
miss the Julia Tunnel.
Right.
I have when I first went down to Las Olas, I had some event at Mango's or something. I did miss that right turn. Ended up on the Julia Tunnel. Very exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting for about the whole 5 seconds it lasts. I mean, it's really
like
you just dip under and you're up.
Right. It's not like the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. You're in the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which connects Brooklyn to Manhattan or Manhattan to Brooklyn for like a week. That thing is so long and so, it's just long. The Julia Tunnel's like 2 seconds.
How about the English Channel from France to England?
You can get claustrophobic in
That's like 3 hours.
That's a tunnel?
Yeah, underwater tunnel.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
There's the English Channel has a tunnel? And it's 3 hours long?
It's about 2.5 hours.
That's crazy.
Is that really true?
Yeah, from France to England. You can travel by car.
Alicia started panicking in Mobile when we were in a tunnel at Mobile, Alabama.
No, maybe
we were in a
maybe
tunnel
it's like,
for about 45 seconds.
Maybe it's about 2 hours.
Tunnels
but
do scare me because I saw the talking about your favorite guy, Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, that movie, yeah.
And the water started coming out everywhere.
Right, they were trapped in there.
Trapped in the tunnel.
Yeah, don't need that.
That was the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel in New York, I think.
Oh, for the movie?
In the movie, I think so, yeah.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah. We got some other news. The Miami Heat, as I said before, we have a great guest list today. Stu Feiner coming up at 7. Mark Caputo, he writes the Florida Playbook for Politico, coming up at 7:30. Albert Breer, NFL Network. Larry Lawton, what a great story. He is former Gambino crime family, now one of the most successful kid programs, reality check programs in the country. Chelsea Taylor, WIRK, will stop by to the Country Music Awards last night, so we'll cover everything. But Gerald Green, the Heat are back on the court tonight, fresh off a home loss to Atlanta. The Heat have started the season 2-2. Road games the next 2 nights in Minnesota against the Timberwolves later on tonight, in Indiana against the Pacers tomorrow. So they get this guy, Gerald Green. Last year was in Phoenix. Very good offensive player. And, in fact, in one of the Heat victories this year, he came off the bench with 19 points. He did not play in the Heat's game a couple nights ago, a home loss to Atlanta, and he's not playing anytime soon because he's gone crazy? What is the story there?
Yeah, apparently Garrett kind of filled me in this morning. I just saw little tidbits this morning, but apparently he was screaming and hollering in the lobby
of his condo.
Yeah,
in Miami or something.
Mario Chalmers was with him, and they had to call police and restrain. Took 4 or 5 guys to get him into the van. And
what was he yelling about? What was he?
It's unclear.
So is this a physical problem, a mental? Because he's had issues. He's been on now 3 teams, I think, in 5 years. What is that? What is that
the
story
statement from the Heat say? This morning, we were informed that Gerald Green was admitted to the hospital. Right now, our concerns are with him, and no further comment at this time.
Yeah. So it sounds like he's crazy to me. When they start doing that, if it's an ankle injury, you know it. If it's a knee injury, you know it. If he be crazy, then all of a sudden, there's no comment. Is that fair to say, Eric?
Yeah. Well, according to what he was screaming out, we'll just tell you how crazy.
What was he yelling?
I don't know, but the more, just out there crazy things. If it didn't have anything to do with anything.
You know that it's only a day or two. Harvey Levin at TMZ will have that audio. You know it.
There had to be a video camera in there somewhere.
Slater was there.
Yes, Andy Slater, of course.
He was there, yeah.
Always on the scene.
Slater scoop? No.
Right. Here's another story in the news today. Woman charged with murder in Oklahoma State homecoming parade crash. You remember this story. Adisha Chambers has been formally charged with 4 counts of second-degree murder and 46 counts of felony assault in connection with the car crash at Oklahoma State University's homecoming parade last month. You may remember she drove her car purposely into a bunch of people, killing a 2-year-old little boy. I believe his name was Nash. I believe she killed 4, injured more than 50, and they are, in fact, charging this lady, which I'm happy about, with murder. So she's going down.
As she deserves, like you said. That was just crazy.
That was a crazy story.
Look on her. I mean, she looks insane herself. She needs
does
help.
Look crazy.
She needs help.
She had left work an hour before, hysterical crying, and no one knew what the hell was going on. And her aunt came out and said she was with her the day before, and she was having some periods of depression and psychosis. So she wasn't all that surprised that this went down, albeit devastated. Super Bowl ads, Super Bowl 50. This is the big one. Will be live in San Francisco. We'll do a couple of West Coast trips. This radio program specifically, don't forget, in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, in fact, we have our first of 2 remotes at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas. And we're staying at the Luxor, very nice, for the huge fight between Canelo Alvarez and Miguel Cotto. So we've got shows 2 weeks from today and 2 weeks from tomorrow. A huge event for HBO in Vegas. And then, of course, not long after that, in early February or late January, we'll head to San Francisco for Super Bowl 50 at that gorgeous new stadium. Well, the ads are out, and the CBS, who's got the Super Bowl this year, Jim Nantz and Bill Sims. I spoke to Phil last night. Jim was on the show just last week. Super Bowl 50 ads on CBS are selling for, take a guess.
Ooh.
I remember when they first were $1 million.
Yeah, it was
like a big deal. Like $1 million for a 30-second Super Bowl commercial. CBS.
I'm saying $4 million.
$4 million. Okay, very good. Let's go to you, Lego.
I would say not quite $4 million. I'm going to say $2 million.
$2 million. $2 million from Eric Langell. $4 million from Steve Zemak. The Showcase Showdown. I feel like Drew Carey.
It's a Price is Right.
Yes. The black guy does it now. What's his name? Wayne Brady.
If you go over, it doesn't count.
Neither one of you are over. How about that? You both are under.
Wow.
Whoa.
Z-Mac wins. CBS is selling Super Bowl ads for $5 million a pop.
Wow.
$5 million a pop to have some horse run in the snow, or to have Ali Landry suck some Doritos out of a drying machine.
Wow.
I don't even remember the commercials the last couple of years. They've all sucked. I remembered all of them. Even the bad ones. Like, I always thought that Budweiser campaign with the talking frogs was stupid. I never got it.
What about
Bud
Bowl? What about Bud Bowl? Remember that?
The Bud Bowl, that was, yeah. Yeah, I do remember Bud Bowl, actually. But the last couple of years, I don't remember any.
No, you're right.
I spent $5 million. Give me. Do you remember one commercial the last 2 years? One.
I do. It's for one
Which
reason
one?
only. Bar Raffaelli making out with.
Oh, that's right. You love Bar Raffaelli.
Who was she making out with? Some gross, disgusting. I don't even remember who it was. I just remember the guy was disgustingly gross.
Was that GoDaddy? Was she GoDaddy?
No. That was
Danica
Patrick.
Yeah, it was Danica Patrick. Yes. Don't remember who she was making out with.
She's in a commercial with some guy that's just disgusting.
You think she's the most beautiful woman in the world, don't you?
Correct.
I'm not going to argue. I would just say this, though, that I believe some of that opinion is based on the fact that she's Israeli. You do tend to very pro-Israel.
Yeah, I am. But yeah, she's my number one. What am I going to say?
She's your number one.
Yeah.
What about Stacey?
She's my number one.
You are such a wimp. God, you are a wimp.
We're talking about Super Bowl commercials.
Right, this is different. You remember any of those commercials, Langell, the last couple of years?
I can't say. No,
right.
I can't.
No, but really, you're right. Good point. You can't. Nothing sticks in your mind where you're paying $5 million where it's like, oh, 2 years from now, they're going to remember this.
Steve, of course, it's a good point. That's why I'm the host of the show.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, I remember the Bar Raffaelli one.
Although, of course, you host your own show now, so you're a big macher.
No,
Sunday mornings, what time is the show on?
11 a.m.
11 a.m. It's the Fantasy Football Forecast with Steve Z-Mac.
Yeah.
Big week coming up.
Got my liners yesterday. They sound great.
How are you going to do the show in Vegas? When we're in Vegas. We're coming home that Sunday morning from Vegas. How are you going to do it?
I'm going to do Skype.
Skype?
Yep. We're going to try out a couple different options.
See, I always think Skype is like so dirty. Like, to me, Skype is like when like your Stacey's back home, you're in Vegas, and like you jerk off in front of her or something. Is that right, Langell? Is that how you think of Skype ordinarily?
Well, I like to think of it more of like a way for military to get in contact with their families.
That's a better point.
Yeah,
I don't think about it like that for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
I don't want to think of it.
Maybe it's just me. I don't know. 844-640-6464. We've got a cavalcade of really good guests about to stop by. 5 or 6 before 10 o'clock this morning. Dan Patrick comes your way at 10. Then we go to Colin Coward at noon. And Joe Ranieri coming up at 3. Panther hockey tonight. They're back on the road. They did lose last night in Anaheim. A 3-2 shootout loss to the Ducks. Panthers back at it tonight in San Jose, taking on the Sharks. We'll come back with our first guest of the day, StuFeiner.com. He's making picks on college football and the NFL. The very entertaining Stu Feiner gets us going right after this.